What is going on, everybody? We are early. Hope everyone's having a wonderful, wonderful Monday. How was everybody's weekend? Let's see. Should be. Let's see. Should be good. How is the internet? If y'all only knew what I did to get this live going, I had terrible internet strength doing these lives, and actually ran like a temporary line to the router in my living room so that I could actually hardline in. But it was a wonderful weekend in the garden. It was hot one. Top of my head is cut off. What? Someone say the top of my head is cut off. That ain't right. Hold on a second. I'm good on Facebook. What's going on? Is the top of my head cut off? I don't like that. Okay, cool. Okay. I want to make sure my top of my head wasn't cut off. Yeah, so it was a great week in the garden. Did a bunch of videos that will be coming out. A couple of them have already came out, but we went ahead and we repotted some desert roses. Y'all saw that video that came out, like I think on Friday, and then we also transplanted a ton of plumerias. And now this is not really the time of year you probably do a lot of transplanting or planting in general, just because it's so hot. It's so hot. But I knew this week was supposed to be a week full of rain so that the plants would have a little chance to recover. And then I also started using this stuff, Nelson Plant Foods Genesis transplant mix, and I started using it like about a year ago. Before it came out, I know Dean Nelson and the guys that were Nelson Plant Food, and they hooked me up with like an R&D jar of this stuff called Genesis by Nelson Plant Food. And when you use it, you transplant something, you put it at the base when you put it in the pot or in the ground, and it's supposed to reduce transplant shock. And I have noticed a huge difference every time I've used it. It is awesome. So using that with the heat and watering really well, then I sat them in the shade. No stress on the plumerias whatsoever. Plus, a lot of tropical plants are going to do better in the summer, when they're transplanted. Stuff like plumerias and hibiscuses, they can take a little bit more. If y'all got gardening questions, drop them down below. We got Facebook and YouTube going, so feel free to drop it down below. What's going on, Captain Jolly? Waiting with my notebook. Oh, thanks, Blue Sage. I appreciate it. Thanks for the super chat. What is the best way to start seeds, indoor, outdoor, and what medium do you start them in? Great question. So a lot of people are getting ready for their fall gardens. I don't know why I have my headphones on. I'm not talking to anybody. Why do I need to have them on? So a lot of people are getting ready to start their fall gardens, and I'm the same. I'm probably about 2 to 3 weeks of starting my fall squash, fall tomatoes, and probably another round of fall cucumbers. It really depends on your climate. So I'm in Houston, Texas area. I think you're in the Houston, Texas area too. So I try to start my seeds for the fall garden outdoors. I do it outdoors, and I do it like in a shadier spot, so it's not just getting whooped by the sun. The problem with starting stuff in the problem with starting stuff right now is that the seed starting trays are going to drop really, really quick. So if you have like a bottom watering tray, make sure you're checking that. But I start my fall seeds outdoors, because if you start your seeds indoors where your AC's on and it's going like 72, 70 degrees, and you take your plants out and you put them out in the 100-degree sun, or I mean, even the evening time, it's like in the 90s. So if you take your seed starts, which are young plants, they're not like fully developed yet, and they go from being, nice cool temperature to going to really hot temperature, even with acclimation, it's going to be rough. It's not the same as doing it in the spring. In the spring, outdoor, you're indoors. You can do it indoors under grow lights, but you're taking them outside and it's cool in the mornings and it's warming up in the afternoons. Right now, it's just rough here in the Texas area. If you're up north, you can probably do it a little bit different. But here in this part of Houston or anywhere part of Texas right now, you're probably going to want to start them outdoors. Just find a shadier spot of your yard, or put them in the shade and then bring them out in the sun, like in the morning, and then move them back in. That's my best advice for that. So I'll be starting fall tomatoes. I'll be doing fall squash, and like I said, probably fall cucumbers, and I'll be doing some videos talking about that. That's so weird. I don't know what's going on. I get the black screen. I ran a hard line to my router, so I shouldn't be having issues. I don't know why I get that little blip. Somebody told me it could be my webcam. I don't know. I'll have to do some more investigation into that because I don't like that. But yeah, so that's my best advice, Blue Sage. If y'all have any more questions, drop them down below. I watched your propagation of Texas sage. Thank you. We want to do it. Plus, you made us laugh. But my question is, once it's getting cold and it's going to freeze, what do you need to do? So I did do that video of Texas sage propagations, but I didn't do that video in the best time of year. So they didn't turn out great. If you're going to do a propagation like a Texas sage, like I will say your best time to do a propagation would be to do it in the early spring or late fall. Middle of summer is not the best time to do it. I mean, I do propagate some things like right now, like I've done pomegranates and I've done some hibiscus and stuff like that. But I've got a section of my yard that's like got a 50% shade cloth, and it's in like a really shady part of the yard where I've kind of had really good success. So, I mean, if you have a spot in your yard where you can, take care of them and keep them from drying out, then you probably can. But once it gets cold, I put mine in the greenhouse. But like I said, I didn't do it the right time of the year. So if you're going to do Texas sage, do it late fall. I did it in the middle of summer last year, late fall, early spring, and then you can overwinter them in the greenhouse or in your garage. So once it gets getting cold and going to freeze, do you need to cover? Yes. So any young propagations or seed starts, you're going to want to protect them from the cold. So you're going to need to bring them in to the garage if it's insulated, a greenhouse, or like inside your shed or something. So I would recommend having somewhere to protect them. Nowadays, you can find a decent size, like a small backyard greenhouse online. They make those metal hoop houses, and then the plastic liners on top. You can find them for like $200. They're not bad. And then you can just put them up seasonally and then take them down in the spring. But if you're gonna buy a greenhouse, if you're looking to get a greenhouse and get into the hobby, now is the time to get them. Don't wait until the first freeze is a week out and you're waiting on your greenhouse to come in. Then it's your fault. And honestly, I've noticed that prices will go up in the winter time. So if you're gonna get a greenhouse any size, I highly recommend get it now, get it put together so that when the cold does come, you're already prepared. Maria, she says, what veggies, fruits will you be planting this fall in your area? So I said earlier, I'll be doing tomatoes, squash, cucumbers. I might even mix it up. I did plant something yesterday and I did a video on it. That'll be coming out soon because I'm still doing a little bit of summer gardening, still getting some peppers. I'm still getting some of the Armenian cucumbers, like the Asian stripe varieties. So I'm still getting some of those. But I'll be doing a little bit of that. And then I'm really excited for the squash because we had a terrible squash crop this year. The squash was not great this year at all in the spring. And I think I had this theory because a lot of times what happens with squash is they don't transplant real well. A lot of cucurbits, like anything in the cucurbit family, which is going to be like your pumpkins, your cucumbers, your watermelons, your squash, your zucchini. A lot of those don't transplant well because they have such a fragile, stem. Their root system goes to this hollow tube, and if you pinch it or bend it or crease it, it doesn't do that well. So I had this theory. I was like, I'm going to wait till after the last frost, and I'm gonna direct seed all my squash and zucchini, and it was doing okay. I just didn't get the germination rate that I wanted, so I think I'm gonna go back to starting them from seed, maybe a little bit later, but indoors under grow lights with my heat mats, and then I'll probably just overplant. I'll grow more than I need so that if some do die out, I will have a better result because we usually are picking yellow squash, zucchini, patty pans, and 8 ball squash, and all this good stuff. We just did not have a great crop this year because I practiced a theory and it didn't work. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm excited for fall gardening. I'm waiting for. I've got one pomegranate left. One pomegranate left on my 2 trees. Hurricane Beryl knocked a couple of my fruit off the trees, and so I got one pomegranate left, and I'm hoping that it gets fully ripe here in September, and I'm able to pick my first pomegranate. I got 2 pomegranate trees, and I've never gotten a pomegranate. I had 4 to 6 pomegranates at one point, but the hurricane came through and it just 100-mile-an-hour winds. I found a couple on the ground. One of I don't know why my internet's doing that. I think it's my internet for sure because it's saying my connection is unstable. It's so stupid. Yeah, I'm plugged into the router, so my Wi-Fi is not even on. This is so stupid. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited for fall gardening. It's so weird, here in the Houston area because you can pretty much grow almost year round here. I mean, over winter, we plan on, we always grow our squash, our cabbage, stuff like that over winter here in Houston just because it's so hot. I mean, if it's above like 75 degrees or whatever, your all your brassicas, your cabbage, your cauliflower, your broccoli, and everything is going to bolt, is going to go to seed. So if you can grow them over winter, like we do here in the Houston area, especially stuff like kale. Kale does really, really well over winter. I was told, I read the comments on the garden party last week, and I got so many comments there. They're gonna make a drinking game where it's we're gonna take a drink every time Destin touches his beard. So I've got to stop it when I'm doing my live streams. Oh yeah, shout out to Phil's Figs. Phil's Figs. I got my Phil's Figs shirt on. My co-host of the garden party. Make sure you go follow Phil's Figs on YouTube and Facebook. We did move the garden party to Wednesdays, but we have a special guest this week, Anthony with the Millennial Gardener, and he couldn't do Wednesday, so we'll be live with him on Thursday this week, and then we'll do coffee in the garden or something on Friday morning. So. But yeah, so we'll be live on same Facebook and YouTube with the Millennial Gardener on Thursday at 7 instead of Wednesday. Let's see what questions we got. What variety of tomato have you had the best luck with? I would say the one that we've done the best with is probably Early Girl. Early Girl is one that we grow every single year, and it seems to do really well no matter what. Early Girl is a hybrid. And it does really, really well. I've got some other varieties that do okay. Like I said, it was such a weird year this year. This was a weird year. It should have been perfect spring garden season, but I was anticipating crappy weather, and we ended up getting a really mild spring. We had a really mild spring, and it was amazing weather. And then it got hot really, really fast in May. So. Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna probably do some Early Girls. We're gonna do some. I'll have to look in my little seed catalog. I got a ton of seeds, and honestly, I need to go through all my seeds. A lot of people don't realize that seeds don't last forever. Seeds, like when you buy seeds for like that season. Don't go and like buy a bunch of about to expire seeds or a discount bag because it's about to expire unless you're going to use them right then and there. Because a lot of times, the seed packets will have like not necessarily expiration dates, but best if used by. You know what I mean? So you want to really pay attention to those dates because some seeds don't store well in those little paper packages. Those paper packages can allow for a lot of moisture and a lot of stuff. So usually when I get my seeds, I end up putting them in little plastic containers and then putting them in a case. and and putting them like in the dark. You don't want to put them in like warm area. Is there any brand of seed better than the rest? That's a great question. I honestly, I always tell people to buy local. So like here in the Houston, like in our there's not really not that I'm aware of any seed providers here in the Houston area, but there is a company out of San Antonio called David's Garden Seeds, and they are a veteran mom and pop shop. They actually have a storefront in San Antonio, just south of San Antonio. Um, and I used to buy from them online on Amazon a long time ago, and I noticed that the prices had gone up on their seeds on Amazon. So I actually sent them an email, and they had said, yes, please, if you can order from their website. The reason they have to charge more on Amazon and stuff is because Amazon takes such a big cut. So if you're going to buy seeds, I'd say avoid Amazon. Go to the actual manufacturer's website, the actual seed company's website, and try them out. Another good company is Haas Seeds. I have not actually used any of their seeds, but I've heard really good things about them from my friends. I've also used, there's a couple of them. But I would say look and find out a seed company that's local to your area, and obviously like support like a veteran company. Like I'm big into that. And people actually try their stuff out. But there's a bunch of different seed companies. There's a ton of them. Row 7 Seeds is a really good one. But there's a ton. My buddy at Seedway, Seed Farm Table, Zach Ortizco. Yeah, Jason. So that's where I hear about. Well, everybody in like the Alabama, North Carolina area all use Haas seeds. So if they're using them, there must be something good about them. And I actually follow Greg from Haas Seeds, and he does a lot of gardening himself. So he's putting his money where his mouth is, and he's got some really good gardening videos. So I like buying seeds from gardeners. So yeah, if you have any gardening questions, feel free to drop them down below. I'll do my best to answer them. Uh, yeah, we did a lot of uppotting this weekend, a lot of transplanting. I went and got some soil from Living Earth Soils, and I don't really buy like your Miracle Grow or your like Pro Mix or your like Fox Farms or anything like that. What I typically do is I'll buy stuff like rose soil or compost, and then I'll mix it all myself. And typically, especially from companies like Living Earth, you can actually get them at a fairly decent price because they're local here in the Houston area. And I'll mix my perlite and whatever and kind of mix it myself, just because I'm growing so much stuff and I can't buy like a truckload because I don't have where to put it, that I kind of have to buy bags and then mix as I go. Do you save seeds? I'm trying to save some of my better performing tomatoes. I don't. I have in the past. Honestly, man, it's such a time consuming thing. I know it's not that hard to do. I mean, it's not that difficult, but like for me, I don't know. Some people swear by it, some people do it, and that's fine. More power to you. I've never really been into it. I've done it a couple times, and you kind of get hit or miss when you're saving your own seeds. Especially when some of them are like hybrids or GMOs and stuff like that. Like you never know what you're really gonna get. We say like the seeds from this tomato are gonna be awesome, but is it actually gonna be a seed from this tomato? Is it gonna be awesome? Even like some of my squash, like I'll get hybrid squash sometimes. I've had zucchini, like green, Ford hook zucchini. They've been planted close by, like a yellow long neck zucchini squash, and they'll hybridize. Like I'll have a half green, half yellow zucchini, and tastes just fine. But if I were to take those seeds, I don't know what they would be. You know what I mean? So saving seeds is a cool idea, and I'm not frowning upon it. I don't have the time, and I have pretty good luck with with quality seed growers. I have pretty good success, so I don't really worry about it too much. But more power to you. If I had a tomato plant or a pepper plant that just did better, produced bigger peppers, and just outgrew everything else I had in the garden, then maybe I would. But I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe next spring I will try to do that. I'm always trying new things in the garden and trying to evolve and become a better gardener. So I mean, it makes sense to try something like that. There's a couple things I'd love to try. Like I've never done seed blocking. I've never done seed blocking or soil blocking. Sorry, not seed blocking. I've never done soil blocking, and some people swear by it. Some people swear by those little wet, soggy soil cubes, and I just never have done it. It seems like way more work, especially when I've already got tons of seed trays outside. But a lot of people swear by soil blocks, and that's all they will do. I've never been one to do many soil blocks. So, but maybe that's something I'll try next year. Just to as if I don't have enough going on, I'm gonna try to learn new techniques. Which I do. I definitely try to do new stuff and current like new current like current up. I don't know how to say it. New like trendy garden trends, I guess. Like you know what I mean. I try to do things like that, especially because the algorithm on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube and all that stuff. Try new things and video it and see how it works out. Not talking about electroculture, that doesn't work. I must have had that video did so crazy. So I had this idea this spring because I had a ton of fig propagations, and the big thing that everybody was talking about this spring, and it's been around for years. I'm sure if you ask people about electroculture, they said it's been around since for thousands of years and thousands of years. And I haven't read the book, so I don't know. But um, I was like, well, let's go buy the stupid dowel rods with the copper wire wrapped around them. And I'm going to do a video where I'm going to stick these rods in these fig trees, and we'll do a side by side test. And I did the video and I was like, well, we'll see how it does. And I think the video got 1 million views on Instagram. I think it did. But like, honestly, I lost track of which ones were which. The rods like rotted in the pots. And so I lost track of which ones were which, honestly. If I do it again, I will definitely label them better to do like a follow-up video, but like I don't want to lie. And also I was getting some negative comments on that video, and I didn't want to feed the I'm touching my beard again. I didn't want to feed the electroculture, love or hate either way. I kind of wanted to leave it alone. So I didn't do a follow-up video to the electroculture video. Um, what would be good fall veg for containers? I'm north of Houston. I've always struggled with sunlight. Some mini trees here. I lost a few and have more light finally. Oh, nice. Oh, so the hurricane did you a favor, took out some trees, huh? Yeah. I would say, like, especially if you don't get a lot of sun, you know, I've done squash in areas that didn't get a lot of sun. Um, but once it starts getting cooler, you're gonna want more sun. So I mean, you could do tomatoes, like you could start tomatoes pretty soon. You could do cucumbers. You could do, I mean, if you have a really shady spot, you could probably start with some leafy greens. You could do some kale. You could do some basil. You could do a lot of things. Like I have some shady spots in my yard, and that's the only spot I can grow like rosemary and dill because it just gets so hot. Hey, adventures with me and T. Can't stay tonight. Just popped in to say hey and support the channel. Have a great night, and we'll catch the next live. Awesome. Thanks for stopping by. I get good sun in the winter. Nice. Yeah. So like in the wintertime, that's when I'm growing like my lettuce, my cabbage, my broccoli, stuff like that. I do love Brussels sprouts. I actually ate Brussels sprouts literally before I came on the live. Just thank God y'all can't smell my breath or my toots. But 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 yeah, I mean, if I could grow Brussels sprouts, enough of them, and honestly, for me, at my place and with my space, it doesn't make sense to grow Brussels sprouts for me, even though I love them so much. I just don't have the space, and you know, all that time and effort to grow 2 Brussels sprout plants, it just isn't worth it for me. But if you got big enough space, you can grow like a whole 100-foot row of Brussels sprouts. I would be doing that 100%. But yeah, if you got a yeah. No, it's not that bad. I do love Brussels sprouts so much though. Brussels sprouts are probably my favorite. I could probably eat Brussels sprouts with every other meal. They're really good. I love. What's funny is I like Brussels sprouts, but I don't like cabbage. I don't like cabbage, but I like Brussels sprouts. It's kind of weird. It's a smell thing for me. I think cooked cabbage smells like dirty diapers to me. I can't do it. But yeah, so yeah, we did a lot of propagations. A lot of not propagations, transplanting. Spent a lot of time in front of this computer editing. It was hot, so I would go outside, do some gardening, shoot some content, and then I'd come inside and edit for like an hour or so. Take a break from the sun. Saturday wasn't as bad as it was a little overcast, but Sunday, oh, was brutal. Sunday was so hot here. I'm just south of Houston, Texas, and it had to be like high 90s all day Sunday. It felt miserable, but yeah, I having that garden cart, the new Gorilla cart I got. I've had a Gorilla cart for a long, long time because I live in a subdivision. I don't have a whole lot of space. My gate is only like 36 inches wide, and so I had this little cart, and I would make multiple trips back and forth to from the front yard to the backyard to the front yard, and it was crazy. So I finally found the Gorilla Cart company who made the original cart. They make like a 1,500 pound capacity, like pull behind wagon that I'm using now. And so I think I mixed up 6 bags of soil, 6 bags of soil in that wagon. So that's like, it was about 12 cubic feet, 12 or 15 cubic feet, I think. I'm doing the math right. But it had a ton of soil in that wagon, and it was so easy to pull. And that's my new favorite thing I've gotten for the garden here recently is that big old wagon. Caesar's in the chat. Hey, Texas Garden Guy. I've had some desert roses that I've started from seed, and they're about a year old now. How soon can they flower? They're pretty good size already. Yeah, I'm new to starting desert roses from seed. I have had some success and some not so successful attempts at starting from seed. If you got some big ones, depending on how big, it can take up to 3 years. They're kind of the way they grow is kind of similar to like plumerias. It can take up to 3 years for like a plumeria to bloom. I've actually had some that have bloomed within the first year and a half on the plumerias. But the desert roses that I have that have grown from seed, I'm still learning about how to take care of them properly. But yeah, I mean, you're probably looking at least 2 to 3 years if I had to guess. Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot to get them to bloom, and then it takes a lot to get them to put out seeds as well. Like I think I've got close to 35 desert roses, not including the little seedlings, and I've only got one of them that puts out seeds, and it is the mega adenium. If y'all seen my video, the mega monster, the monster adenium, I think it's like actually like 3 or 4 different adeniums mixed into one. They're all like tangled up like a pile of octopuses. That is the only one that actually puts out seeds for me. And I just pulled my first one of the year probably a week or two ago. And I let it dry out in a jar on my windowsill, and then I pop all the little seeds. So it's pretty cool. And the thing about desert roses is that like you can find the seeds online, and they're just a lot of them haven't been great for me. I've ordered some and gotten them online, and they haven't been great. I actually just made another order from a company called, I think it's called Exotic Seeds or something like that. But I ordered a bunch of different varieties just to see if I can get them to do well. We'll see though. Sometimes the seeds come in and they're not great quality. I'm in South Texas in the valley, so they pretty much they flower pretty much all year around because of the heat. Yeah, so it can be a combination of both with the heat. I've noticed that like once it gets hot, there's usually phases with the desert roses. It'd be early spring and they'll all be blooming, and then it starts to heat up, and then they start dropping leaves, and then I kind of move mine to shade a little bit, like they'll get morning sun and afternoon shade. And then I just recently built that little cascading little staircase little thing to put them all on, and they're getting more sun there. And I've noticed that yes, the more sun, it seems like they actually put out more blooms, because almost I'd say a third of them are all blooming now. They did go through a phase where most of them lost a lot of leaves, but then I've heard someone describe this before, and I'm not a scientist, and they told me this, and it could have been BS, but it makes sense that say you go to a nursery or like a Lowe's or Home Depot and you buy a plant and it was in, partial shade, the plant can grow in full sun or partial shade, but it was in partial shade at the store, and then you bring it to your house and you put it in full sun, and you notice that after you transplant it, it drops like almost all of its leaves. But then it starts to put out brand new leaves. And the way that, I forget who it was, it might have been my buddy Vikram, the plant professor, could be wrong, but they were saying that, you know, leaves on plants have like almost like a built-in sunscreen that, the plant's leaves will adapt to allow so much, UV rays from the sun, and that when they go from one environment to another, they will drop those other leaves and produce leaves that are more adaptable for that lighting position, which sounds right to me, but I forget who said it. I'll have to do more research. I think I've said that two or three times, but I need to do more research and like, prove how that's right. That would be a cool video to do. But yeah, they need greenhouse protection in the winter, right? Yes and no. You can. I honestly don't trust my greenhouse for the wintertime when it comes to stuff like my desert roses, my plumerias, because they're like my prized possessions. And plumerias and desert roses are going to be a lot more. They're going to be damaged a lot worse if they get hit with a freeze. Like, say my power goes out and the greenhouse has been heated all day, but as it gets dark, it gets colder and colder, and the power's not back on. My hibiscuses and stuff will be kind of shielded by the wind chill, and everything else in there will be okay. But stuff like my desert roses and my plumerias might get hit by some of that cold weather. So unless you got, like, for sure you can protect them, you can put them in there. But I end up putting mine in my insulated garage, because even if we do lose power, that garage is going to stay pretty warm. It's insulated. I've got like stuff on in there, like my hot water heater, which I found out my hot water heater is gas. So even if I lose power, my hot water heater works, and it actually kind of warms my garage a little bit. Kind of, brings it up a little bit. So let's see. Yeah, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. That's an interesting. I have to do some more research on it. I forgot that I'm using new streaming software, using new streaming software, and there's better features on here. So I can actually click the question and put it up, or the comment. Sounds interesting. It's interesting. I've heard they like to be stressed out to get them to bloom. Well, I mean, I guess if you think about it, if a plant is in fight or flight, it's either gonna fight, put out blooms and hope for pollination, and get a seed to produce so that the next generation can move on, or it's gonna flight. It's just gonna drop its leaves and protect itself until it's better weather conditions. So it could be something like that. That's a really good point. That could very well be the case. And I've got quite a few that are out in full sun right now, and they're putting out some really, really pretty blooms. So yeah, it rained today, so I was kind of happy. I went to work, and I do have a full-time job. I got a full-time job that pays for all my plant hoarding. So I was at work and I saw that it was raining, and I was like, yes, that's one day they don't have to rain the garden. I don't have to water the garden. I was happy about that. And plus, nothing is better for the garden than some rain. So I think we got a 1/4 inch, so that should be enough. I'm not too worried about it. I've had peace. Oh yeah, here we go. I've had peace lilies in the garden, or in the garage. I've had peace lilies for 16 years, and keep them in the garage over the winter. Nice. Yeah, it's so funny. Like, I do a lot of gardening and grow a lot of crazy stuff, and things like peace lilies, I can't keep them alive. Everybody from like a beginner gardener to a professional gardener all has like a group of plants that they just can't keep alive. And for me, it's like stuff like that. Orchids, for me, I can't get orchids to do well. And then herbs. I'm always the worst with herbs. I cannot. I still have a rosemary that's still alive, but I typically will not be able to keep rosemary alive. Dill is tough. It just gets so hot. I did find a trick for dill. It just didn't work out this year because it got so hot too quick. And I forgot to plant dill. But usually, what I do is when it's first thing in spring, I plant a couple of 3-gallon pots with dill in it. And what happens is they'll grow. They'll put out their little fragrant little fronds, and you prune them off and you put them in your pickles. And then they will go to seed and they'll drop their seeds and they will just continue to grow. And I just did not do it well enough. And so I started too late and it just was too hot. So, but yeah, usually I'm able to, grow them in containers and then put them in almost complete shade and they do pretty well. The rosemary I still have alive. The rosemary is doing pretty well. What is this? I'm getting emojis. But yes, can y'all hear me okay? If y'all are just joining the chat, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. So if you have any gardening questions or fall garden planting, fall garden questions, or fall tree planting questions, I know a lot of people are excited for this fall to plant their fruit trees. I had a lot of people talk about wanting to plant their fig tree in the ground or wanting to start an orchard, putting some apples or pomegranates or, peaches, stuff like that. Fall is probably the best time. You might think that the fall would be the worst time to put stuff in the ground because you might have to worry about a freeze. But actually, for stuff you're going to plant out in the ground, it's usually pretty chill, pretty likes the chill for to the chill hours. The chill hours. It's actually more beneficial to plant them when it's going to be cold than planting them in the spring. Because if you plant a tree in the fall time, it's going to deal with the cold weather over winter, and it can typically handle all that. But planting something in early to late spring, like a oak tree or a apple tree, anything, can be almost worse because it's going to have to spend that whole spring, growing those roots, getting developed, and then it gets thrashed by the heat, especially here in the Houston area. I mean, so many people that plant stuff in the early spring, even like early and late spring, end up just having really bad luck with trees and over summer. The summers here are so brutal. Let's see, Caesar. I love your videos, especially. Oh, I love when I get love. I love your videos, especially the Desert Roses and Plumeria ones. Just wanted to say thanks for the great content. The podcasts are not really my thing. No offense, but love your videos. Hey, no problem, Caesar. Podcasts are not for everybody. I just like it's hard for me working a full-time job to do, content like where, I know my buddy Jason from Cog Hill does 3 videos a week. And this is his full-time job. So it's hard for me with the full-time job to do, that many videos a week. So I wanted to try to go do these live streams more often and interact with y'all throughout the week when I'm not able to put out as much content. So I feel like it's a fair trade-off, and it's kind of nice for me to come chill. And, the garden party, I've got Phil, we'll have Dez, and we'll have Anthony, the millennial gardener, on it. So I don't get to like interact as much, but this is kind of like my time to get to answer questions. And that's another thing me and Phil talk about all the time. It's hard when you've got 4 people talking on a live stream to go to the questions and get all those answered. So it's nice to do a couple of these lives just by myself and, just enjoy interacting with y'all and answering some questions. Blue Sage got a question right here. I've always wanted a Satsuma. Do you think it would do well here? Absolutely. And I got a Satsuma this spring, and I was over there at Fred Reyes Nurseries over in Simonton, Texas. And what's really cool about this Satsuma is that it is a frost Satsuma, which is a cold tolerant Satsuma variety. So I believe it's cold tolerant down to 15 degrees. Now that's not so. You got to be careful when you look at stuff like that because it can be misleading. So when something says it is cold tolerant down to 15 degrees, what it's referring to is this tree is cold tolerant down to 15 degrees if it's planted in the ground and it's had time to establish roots. So if you got it in the spring and you planted it in the ground, it may hold up to that 15 degrees. If you got it in a container, the wind chill around the container is going to be worse than 15 degrees because the wind chill is just a nightmare. So even if that satsuma that I've got that's a frost satsuma, it probably would be okay to leave it out. I'm not going to take a chance. It will go in the greenhouse, even though it says it's a frost satsuma. I'm not taking any chances. But I do know people like Anthony, the millennial gardener, and Phil who have citrus trees up there in North Carolina, which gets colder up there than it does here. And they have citrus in the ground, and their techniques are to they wrap it in a tarp and they put Christmas lights around it, and having the Christmas lights, and that's an iridescent light bulbs, not the LEDs. The LEDs will not put out any heat. So you have to have I say iridescent, I mean incandescent light bulbs. So they will actually put out heat and warm that tree enough, keep that tree warm enough to where it'll actually stay alive all winter long. So there's a lot of cool videos out there, and make sure to check out the Millennial Gardener and check out Phil's Figs. They make a lot of cool videos, and they both have citrus in the ground, I believe, and they're both smarter than me. Let's see, Melissa, I found you a few months ago looking for Houston gardening. I learned a lot. I like the garden party as well. The garden party is I always say the garden party is the most fun thing I do content wise all week long, and it takes the least amount of effort. If you've ever watched the garden party, it usually goes for about an hour and it flies by because we're just, imagine being in a room with all your garden buddies, and from different backgrounds, different locations. I do my best to try to get, people in the garden party that aren't, I don't want them all just from Houston. I don't want them all just from California. I want, one here, one there, Alabama, California. We're going to have a Canadian on here in a couple weeks, so I try to mix it up and give people different expertises. I met a lot of people at the Nursery and Landscape Expo that I want to bring in and get them on the podcast because there's just so many interesting people that are way smarter than me, on the podcast to talk about what they like to do in the garden. And that is what interests me. And it's so much fun. And I love doing it. And I have not missed 1 week. I think we're coming up. In October for like the 1 year anniversary of when we started this. And I have not missed 1 week. Let's see. I appreciate it, Caesar. Let's see. Have you ever grew lilies from bulb? I was surprised. I had bought some from QVC in this heat. They grew and bloomed like in a few months, and they were beautiful. Their fragrance filled my house. Yeah, I've done a couple of things from bulb. I've done a couple of things from bulb. I've never grown lilies from bulb, but I got into gladiolus a couple of years ago. I ordered. I forget the name of the website. But there's a website and they sell like exotic plants. Like they send out like magazines and you can order them probably the same way like QVC does their stuff where you can order stuff like that. But I ordered gladiolus and you get a bunch of different varieties and you plant them deep and they pop up like in your flower bed. And I even did some in the container. And then they'll die back. And then you can either dig up the bulbs and move them, or you can, leave them there and they'll just come back every single year, which I think is so cool. My friends from San Diego Seed Company actually wanted to send me some dahlia bulbs. I think that's what they mentioned. Dahlia bulbs. And I don't know that dahlias do too well here in the Houston area because of the humidity. So I'm looking to get some more bulbs and get into some more stuff every year. And when you're a plant hoarder and a garden nerd, what happens every single year is that you get into something new. Like every year, it's something new that I get into. And, you just got to have a little bit of everything. And I'm a tech junkie. So like when I buy like a GoPro, I got to have all the accessories. I got to have all the clips and all the things, so like whenever it comes to like a certain plant that I get into that I never knew about, I got to have all the different varieties and stuff. And then I'll go on a plant hoarding mission. Just like this past year, I didn't know anything about bromeliads. I had no idea about bromeliads. I just assumed there were these little leafy things that didn't bloom, didn't produce fruit. And that's always kind of been my thing, is that if it doesn't produce fruit, doesn't produce blooms, then who cares, And I actually was over at my friend's nursery, Claire, at Jimbo's nursery in Alvin or Santa Fe. right down the road from Jorge's Hidden Gardens. And it was in the winter time, and they apparently specialize in bromeliads, like thousands and thousands of bromeliads. And they go to like the Bromeliad Society of America show, and they're like experts and all kinds of crazy stuff. Her dad is super, super knowledgeable. And uh, it's cool. And we were doing a tour, and she was like, "Hey, have you ever you want to look at the bromeliad greenhouse?" And I was like, it's okay. I don't really know much about them. I don't really care, about them too much because they don't really flower." And they're like, "Oh, you didn't know like that they bloom like in like over winter?" And I was like, "What?" And they took me into the greenhouse, and it was just like some of the coolest looking psychedelic blooms you ever seen, like growing out of these little bromeliads. I had assumed, you go to like Walmart or the grocery store and you look at the floral department and you see those bromeliads and they look like they've been spray painted. And I just assumed that's what they were doing because like there's so much fake stuff in like the retail business, where Lowe's and Home Depot will go and they'll glue little fake flowers on top of cactuses, and I had just assumed that they put you know spray paint on these bromeliads, but apparently that's how it happens naturally. And so that happened in, well, I think I'm up to like 12 bromeliads now. I really like them because you can put them in hanging baskets and they'll actually pup out. Like they kind of grow like an aloe. Well, they'll just put a little pup off to the side, and all you need to do is pull it up, cut it off, and put it in its own pot, and you're good to go. Yeah, I can I sing like Ricky Nelson? I know who Ricky Nelson is. Uh, yeah, I won't buy from HEB or Walmart for flowers. Yeah, I I will buy some things from Walmart or HEB if I know what I'm looking at. You know what I mean? Like I don't recommend people buy like their fruit trees and stuff like that from Walmart or HEB or anything like that. I don't know. I don't know enough about them. But like if I'm walking through Walmart and they got like, usually I'm checking out the clearance area. Like I've bought quite a few of those, braided hibiscus trees. They were like on clearance for like $6 at Walmart. I've done that a lot. Same thing with like HEB. If I see something that like I can't not have, I think I bought my fuchsias this spring from HEB only because they had a really good variety of them. They had like some I hadn't seen before, so I'd bought a couple. But if you don't know what you're looking for and you don't know what you're looking at, I really don't recommend buying plants or trees from big box stores at all, because if you go to like Jorge's or Jimbo's or Enchanted Gardens or Enchanted Forest or Buchanan's here in the Houston area, even Moon Valley growers, you go talk to someone who works there and you ask them a question about a tree, they're gonna be able to give you an answer. The reason they work there is because they've become knowledgeable and can sell a tree. They make their money with people coming back and spending more money on more trees. They don't want, most smaller nurseries, they don't want you to come back because your plant died. They want you to come back because, wow, that tree did so well, I want another one. And then they're gonna tell their friends, hey, I got this tree and it did so well, go buy your tree from them. you know uh, you go to Walmart, HEB, you ask them a question about a tree, and it's that whole Ron Swanson, uh, Parks and Rec, when he's walking through Lowe's, and the guy, hey, can I help you? And Ron Swanson just says, I know more than you. That's how it is at Lowe's for me. I'll be seeing people if I go to Lowe's to pick something up and I walk through and I see someone watering something really heavy, or they got a certain plant in the shade, or it needs to be in the sun, or the sun needs to be in the shade, I'm like, oh, like, oh God, everybody's seen the meme where they're like, I was looking for my dad and I couldn't find him. Then I walked out in the garden section and there's the dad. He's watering the garden. I think that's so funny. But I want to say that not HEB, Lowe's or Home Depot have actually brought in like a third party company that handles most of their like garden plants. Like when they bring them in, they're not. I've been at Lowe's or Home Depot before and seen people come in and they're setting up displays and putting up plants and putting stuff out, and they're not like Lowe's or Home Depot employees. They're somebody else. And I'm wondering if they have like experts that come and do that. Don't know though. But yeah, unless you know exactly what you're looking for, I I I highly suggest not buying from Lowe's or Home Depot with certain things. I heard of Lowe's or Home Depot that sells desert roses. Yes, yes, that is true. So I was convinced that they're like I think that they're tapping my phone or they're watching my Instagram or something that maybe I think they're it's just conspiracy theory coming out, right? I think that they are using some kind of algorithmic quantum computer that's finding out, what are local garden influencers like content. I hate the word. Oh, I said influencer. I freaking hate that word. I create content. I'm a content creator. I'm not a garden influencer. But like I think they pay attention to what kind of stuff I'm growing and what people are getting interested in because Lowe's and Home Depot, I'm seeing plants that I've never seen before that I've been doing my videos on. Either that or I've just never noticed them before. But I don't think I'm crazy to say that when I walked in and saw that Lowe's was selling desert roses, my mind was blown. I was like, what is going on here? I've also started to see that the big box stores are carrying more fig trees. They're carrying, they're really getting into Texas natives. That's kind of I've really been trying to do more Texas native plants, and I have noticed that a lot of stores are actually moving in that direction where they are growing and having like an entire section of desert not desert roses, native Texas plants. That could be a combination of a lot of things, but you know I think they're tapping my algorithm or something. I don't know because either that or they're trying to get me to come there and buy. And I did buy a desert rose from Lowe's. I did buy a desert rose from Lowe's. There's only one reason why, though. It had a beautiful bloom on it, and I was concerned with the way the lady at Lowe's was watering it. I was concerned with the way this lady was watering this desert rose. I saw the way she was watering it, and it was in black soil, and I was like, oh, I must rescue this desert rose. All that is Adenium obesum, I must rescue this desert rose, and I did. And it is one of my most beautiful ones now. I typically try to avoid that though. I always say if you can support your local nurseries. When anybody asks me, hey, where do you find this? Where do you find that? I always tell them, find out your local nursery and call them. Because whether you're in South Houston, North Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, you know, if you're from Dallas and you come to Austin or you come to Houston and go to one of our nurseries, they may not know what grows in your area. If you go to your local nursery, local family owned small business nursery, they're going to grow what grows in that area. They're not going to sell you something, like you know, Fuji apple or not Fuji. What is it called? The Washington apple. I forget what it's called, but the one that only does well in like the state of Washington. I forget the variety, but you go to Walmart or Home Depot and buy them. They're going to sell you an apple or a peach or a pear that doesn't even do well in this area with this amount of chill hours. What do you recommend for? This is turned into a desert roast talk. That's fine with me. What do you recommend for fertilizing desert roses? So, Nelson Plant Food makes a couple different fertilizers that you can use. I prefer to use their plumeria food because I've got plumerias and desert roses. Their plumerias are heavy feeders, so I'm typically giving my plumerias fertilizer every 14 days. So that's every 2 weeks. But I'm only giving my desert roses fertilizer every month, once a month. And I'll go through and I'll use that plumeria food. But what you can also do is Nelson Plant Food makes a color star, which is like for your flower bed. And that's a slower releasing granule. And now that one would be fine for like 2 to 3 months. Yeah. So that's a good option. Some people use, if you already have some, people use like Osmocote. Something that I also do since I'm usually doing like a weekly neem oil treatment with some organic fertilizer. Plumeria food for sure. but I use a liquid fertilizer as well. It's a foliar feed. I mix it with my neem oil and whatever else I'm using that week, and I'll foliar feed my desert roses as well, and I get pretty good results. If you're using a chunky, well draining mix, you can get away with watering. You're gonna have to water more often. Um, so and I do those foliar feedings. I do all my foliar feedings in the late evening because it's just they say that the plant can absorb more nutrients through the stigma of the plant can absorb more nutrients than the actual roots. Yeah, Osmocote's okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's surprised. I work with Nelson Plant. I don't work for, but I work with Nelson Plant Food on a lot of stuff, and so they hook me up with fertilizer. And so, in my opinion, it's like the best fertilizer. It's the only granular fertilizer that I really use. So, but it's really good stuff. I have Texas sage in a large container that hadn't bloomed in 2 years since I bought it. It's in a sun blasted patio here in Houston. Any suggestions? Yes, stoma. Yeah, I'm not the best for words. Okay. Texas sage. So I would recommend Texas sages will do better in full sun. Yes. Make sure you're watering it a little bit more. And are you fertilizing it? I believe, I wish I had I usually have a couple of those pots in here with the fertilizer in them. I believe Nelson Plant Food, the fertilizer that I use for the Texas sage, I think it's the hibiscus. I think it's the hibiscus fertilizer that I use, but um, it's been kind of dry for like the last month, but it hasn't bloomed in 2 years. That's nuts. Send me pictures. If you can send me a picture, it's on my Instagram. Um, if it's a big, healthy desert rose, I mean, it sucks it's not blooming. Mine don't stop blooming. Mine don't stop blooming at all because I keep them out in full sun. They're getting a little bit of fertilizer. Yeah, and they don't stop blooming. Even my white one and my purple one. Yeah, I use Osmocote, the pink bottle. Yeah, Osmocote's just fine. Are you using neem right now with this heat? I am, but I only apply it late in the evening, and it's at such a low diluted level. You know what I mean? When I'm doing neem oil, it is usually I've got a 13-gallon sprayer, and I usually fill up 8 gallons of water, and I'm doing probably 1 ounce a gallon. That's 8 ounces for 8 gallons. So it's not that much, really. It's pretty diluted. And I do it late in the evening. I do it like that for a number of reasons. Like we discussed earlier, the stoma is going to absorb more nutrients. It's on the stomas are going to open up early in the morning and late evening. So you could do either way. I'm off in the evenings. I work early, so I'm not there in the morning to do it. So I do it then. I do it late in the evening. Because of that, also that it won't burn stuff up. If you were to go out there and spray neem oil on a plant in the middle of the day, you can really burn it pretty bad. So I don't recommend that. And then also, if you spray late in the evening, you're less likely to hit a bee. You don't want to go spraying this. I don't spray my native Texas plants. I don't spray just my primary pollinator plants, but I do spray, like my veggies and my fruit trees, but I don't have any issues with pollinators. I've got a lot of bees. Got a lot of bees. I see them every single day, so I'm not having issues with it, and that's why I use it late in the evening. So it's it's good stuff. What you got, Haley? Haley, long time listener. I'm going through the exact same dilemma. I found these absolutely pitiful looking philodendron, very maybe pronounce these names, verrucosum and squirm. I feel like when people type stuff like that, I feel like they're trying to make me say dirty words on accident. Hidden underneath the shelf in complete darkness at my local Kroger. Yeah. I've been wanting to rescue some plants from time to time. When do I stop fertilizing desert roses? So it depends. I pretty much stop fertilizing during the winter. A lot of times they will, it starts cooling down, they'll drop all their leaves and they'll go dormant. What happens for me is I put them in the garage under grow lights and they don't drop their leaves, but I don't feed them during that time. So they get a break from it from probably, I don't know. I kind of stop like halfway through like probably beginning of November is when I stopped fertilizing stuff like that for me in the Houston area. But you'll know when your plants are starting to go dormant because it'll start getting cooler and they'll start dropping their leaves, and that's when I stop fertilizing. It looks healthy. This is about the Texas sage. Applied a slow release fertilizer earlier this year. Been a wet summer here in Houston too, so I haven't really watered it until recently. Yeah, that's weird. It could be something. Now, I've heard this as well that their roots go pretty crazy, and so it may be time to repot it. It may just not be a happy plant, and it may just want to be in a bigger pot or in the ground. So that may be why it's not blooming as well. Could be a number of things, but if you don't mind, go to my Instagram and send me a picture. If y'all ever have questions on, plants or gardening, and I can't get to them, all on the lives, of course, make sure to tune into all the lives and stuff. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you see every time I post a video or I go live. But you can feel free to go to my Instagram DMs. I try my best to respond. I'm not the best at it because I'm so busy, but I will do my best. Yes. So I'm about to hop off here shortly, but I just want to say thank you everybody for hopping on. I do these lives because I love interacting with y'all, and I love, getting to, talk to the people who, want to hear what I have to say. So, and I learn stuff too. Like I definitely learn stuff when I'm doing these lives from y'all. So we're all constantly learning new things, and this is kind of a spot for me to get to share my thoughts for the week and everything. This week with the rain, we'll see what I can get done. I got a feeling that I'm going to do a lot of video editing because it is not looking too great with the weather. So we'll see how tomorrow goes with the rain. But until then, guys, make sure to tune in Thursday night. I almost said Wednesday. Thursday, we'll have the Millennial Gardener on with Dez and Farmer Phil for Farmer Phil. Phil's Figs. Phil's Figs. My buddy Phil's Figs. So until then, we will see y'all Thursday.